And I would give advice to any data scientist who wants to more move into like the analytics side of things. I would highly, highly encourage learning about observational studies and that the techniques used for that space. And the reason being is that, and this is more so going to like my healthcare kind of research background, but
Mhm.
either have clinical trials or randomized control
Mhm.
trials where you control the
Mhm.
experiment, you control the data, and therefore you can control for a lot of the bias. And there's various steps for that. But many times as data scientists, we don't control the data collection. Maybe you're doing A/B testing. There's a little bit of control there, but many times you're getting data from a product that's intended for something else, or you're getting a third party data that's coming in to combine it together. And
Mhm.
so the secondary analyses that you're doing, observational studies are the way for me to like conceptualize and think through how to approach this, and more importantly, reduce bias as much as possible, to do causal inference.
Cool. Yeah, that's just a really good tip. And I do also recommend understanding those kinds of concepts well, when you can be making causal inferences or not. Great point. All right, cool. So we've got a good sense of what Humu does,
Yep.
what you do
Oh,
there.
going
Yeah,
back, just to
yeah,
take a
yeah,
step
yeah.
back too, in addition, that was the R side. I also use a lot of Python. I probably use Python more than R, for my work, because I'm more on the engineering side. And
Oh, yeah.
so if I want to, take the research or analytics and operationalize it and put it within a product, we're a Python based company. And so many times I won't be working with BigQuery to access the data. I'm actually accessing our data directly within the database.
Mhm.
And from there, building the various tools, and I get to do the software engineering best practices, not of doing the unit tests, having classes, making things modular, getting the code review thoroughly from the engineering team. And that's where I have the most fun at. I really enjoy that.
Nice. It does sound like you are becoming more and more of a software engineer for sure. And so I understand that right now Humu is doing software engineer hiring. And yeah, I've said this a dozen times on the Super Data Science podcast before. But if you want to be super employable as any kind of role in data science, data analyst, data scientist, if you want to be super employable, definitely that list of things that Mark just listed around unit tests, it was perfect. You should rewind and listen to it again. If you want to be super employable, listen to that list and be making steps in the direction of being a software engineer, which could include being a data engineer or machine learning engineer. And you will have so many job opportunities as opposed to being just a pure data scientist who can only work once the data have already been provided to them, and like being able to take your machine learning model and put that into production, or being able to engineer the data flows into your machine learning model. That kind of defines machine learning engineering and data engineering respectively. Those are hugely valuable skills. And yeah, and then those can be a stepping stone to being a back-end software engineer or full stack developer. And you can still use the data science background that you have, in lots of ways. You'll be like a full stack data scientist, some people call that. But yeah, we hear about this all the time on the show. Often our guests are doing data scientist hiring, but they are always hiring software engineers.
Yep, it's a hard role to fill. And also just some quick advice for people. How I learned this stuff. When I came into this job, I had a desire to do more software engineering stuff. I didn't have the skill set for it. And so my manager put me in a position to do these more engineering tasks and allowed me to stretch myself. And code reviews is where I learned how to do these software engineering best practices. I had really patient and really kind and thoughtful mentors on the engineering side. Shout out Miriam. She is amazing. She brought me a lot of code review on large projects, to really essentially get me up to speed to write production level code. And code reviews, both doing code reviews and getting code review. And so you may be asking yourself, I don't have this job yet. How do I even get this practice? I will learn Git, learn how to create a pull request on your own GitHub, and then go on LinkedIn, go into your network and be like, hey, you're a software engineer, you're a data engineer. I did this code. Can you do code review for me? Ask someone. And you'll find at least someone to say yes, provide feedback on your code, and then implement it. And so the next time you go into a job interview and they're like, what's your experience? I did this whole side project. Oh, by the way, I even got code review from my network and implemented their feedback. You're going to look amazing to the hiring panel to show that type of initiative, and that will really mimic the workflow.